When are we going to get you on this platform? We good? All right. Well, hey, welcome back to Hyperbaric Plus. We do a little podcast every week, and our main guest is Keith Bishop with Prevail Over Cancer.com. And we missed a couple of weeks. We had a big snowstorm blew through. And then last week I went solo because Keith was under the weather.
I was not doing well, right?
Did you get to see mine? See, he didn't even watch.
I was taking a nap. I was
there
pretty
you go.
tired.
There you go. So anyway, last week we talked about measurable results, which I'm going to revisit with Keith. I hope you'll watch that segment because you're the guy that always says assess, don't guess.
We're going to talk about that today.
And I know, you talk about it every week.
Yeah,
I knew we would hit.
Yeah,
but anyway, there's so much to it, and I'm really going to try to find the people that have kidney failure, liver failure, those things that you test for blood work. And when your doctor runs out of ideas and your blood work's no longer changing, I get people in here and we move the needle. We change the course. And I'm going to try to do that in a way that we can document it. And if we improve those levels, I want you to go to your insurance company and ask for reimbursement.
Right.
That's why we have insurance. But if we can change it ourselves, we should have access to doing that. And everybody says, Conrad, that'll never fly.
It's a tough battle. It really is.
But it
has to be done.
If we never go and take on that battle, it'll never change. So we have to, at some point, we got to start doing that. So anyway, a little prelude into what's going on next week, maybe, if I can talk Keith into it. So this week, one of my veterans that is in our veteran program, which is hyperbaricsforheroes.org, came and dove with us. He did his 40 sessions. He did a little bit after that. I don't like anybody to go cold turkey when they're done. So as he was diving after that initial 40 sessions, he got diagnosed with breast cancer, male breast cancer. And he's been sitting in. He's been involved here during most of our cancer dives. And so he put in a request. Why don't we talk about male breast cancer? Because every time he brings it up, people kind of step back and go, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
Well, it is a thing.
That's right.
And T wants to, I'm sure he's going to jump in here in a minute, but T wants to bring this to everyone's attention. So that's how we came up with today's segment. And I'm going to let you take it from there.
Sure, yeah. So T, thanks for mentioning this. And so it is something that is not very common. Matter of fact, currently, I do not have any clients with male breast cancer that I remember. And so it's actually less than 1% of all cancers. So it's not something that's well studied. And as T is learning, it's more common in women because it is more of an estrogenic type cancer. And so, matter of fact, male breast cancer is typically more of an ER plus, estrogen receptor plus. Matter of fact, I didn't really find much information about negative, ER negative, but it is primarily an ER plus. And so ER plus, estrogen receptor, there can be other things. We'll talk about that, certain types of foods and processed foods, and even plastics. Matter of fact, I don't even have that on the list. That reminds me, on my website, Prevail Over Cancer, I've got this handout. It's going to be on there for about a week until next week's seminar. The bottom of the Learning Center, one of the pages on my website. It's a free download, so you can actually get that. So if those of you that want these statistics or information and food lists and things like that, go ahead and get that. There's links on there to more resources. So download that. It's probably going to be also on hyperbaric.plus website. So download that. And if you have questions, go ahead and submit those. So Ryan's with us, and so he's going to gather those questions and print those off for us, and we'll go through as many as we can as time allows in a little bit. So
how about a disclaimer?
Okay, disclaimer.
Go ahead.
Okay, disclaimer about...
So this is not information
Yes.
to replace your doctor.
Yeah, so a couple of points. Yes, thank you. That this is not information to replace what your doctor says. It is education, so to learn and to start applying, and even as you get ideas, to ask your medical team, for insight to that. When I mention supplements, supplements have not been proven to treat anything according to federal agencies, and so it's still more of an education type program. This is not a treatment. This is not medical advice. Is that good?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. help cover some of the legal things.
Yeah, well, you usually do
I
that
know,
right
usually
off
I
the
do.
bat, so
Thank you
I'm
for
glad
pointing that out.
yeah, we're
That's
good.
right. So, okay. And so less than 1% of all cancers, it's less than 1% of all breast cancers. So it's, not very common at all. And, but it's also sad to say, it's actually rising. And the rate is actually becoming higher and higher, as are a few other cancers. And I venture to say they really don't know why for sure, but I really feel like since colon cancer, colorectal cancer is also going up in young people, I feel like it has to come back to primarily processed foods and plastics and endocrine disruptors that can be in soaps and personal care products, perfumes, and things like that. So, we live in a different world than our grandparents did. So when a person says that, grandma did this, she ate that food every single day and she lived to be 100. Well, that was 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. And so that was a different situation. The food is different, although we are seeing a shift in that. And we're going to talk quite a bit more about that, with this. So, and I'm going to work off of this sheet to help keep me focused, make sure I cover everything. So, male breast cancers are typically more of an ER positive. That means, it's more of an issue if a person has certain body characteristics. And actually, the more body fat a guy has, the greater the risk of estrogen receptor cancer, and including prostate cancer and breast cancer. And yes, there is a relationship to that. We're going to talk about these other cancer relationships. But with that excess body fat that a guy has makes estrogens. And yes, hormones can be tested. We're going to talk about that too. And certain types of estrogens are worse than others. So, but the excess body fat is definitely a characteristic. It also has a tendency to happen in older men. So over 45, over 45, but actually the age that's a very common age for some reason seems to be about 65. And so, and we're going to talk about, guys, things that you can do, and this is information that you can share, with loved ones. And so whoever you are that's watching, take this information, get the download, and encourage your friends, your partners, your spouse, to be aware about your body. And so we're going to talk about what to do for that.
And I got to think that a lot of these pointers are going to also be pointed at the women population as well. I mean,
exactly.
There's not a difference.
It is exactly the same thing.
Right.
So, matter of fact, part of that, the next thing we're going to talk about is actually family history. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a family history of breast cancer, that increases the guy's risk. So if a mother has breast cancer, her son is going to be at a higher risk. Mm-hmm. And so, there are a few genetic factors that we are familiar with, including the BRCA1 and 2, and then I'll list a couple others because I have another section about that. But a strong family history is definitely part of that. Now, it doesn't have to be just breast cancer. We're about to talk about the other cancer too, so stay tuned, for that. And so, especially if actually a mother or sister was diagnosed with cancer before they were 40, that seems to be even a greater risk, because that's actually typically not so much just an environmental thing, but more likely there could be some genetics, involved in that. So genetics aren't always a factor for cancer, definitely not. And as a matter of fact, I'll probably say that half of the people that I have with cancer, my clients, at least half of them that have had great panels, there are no genetic markers for that. So, yes.
I want to say you talked about male breast cancer being ER positive. Mine is HR2 positive.
Okay, yeah, and there can be, exactly. So it's not just ER, but HR2 or HER2 positive, which actually typically makes it a little bit more aggressive. The good part is there is a medication for that too, to help address that. So yes, so there can be definitely, and there's still probably some other hormone type things related to that. But yes, HER2 is another growth factor that can be addressed. Definitely. Yeah, thank you, T. So he's the one that's going through this. He knows a lot. So we're going to invite him to point things out. So I'll be kind of watching for your hand, at that. So coming from our table. So hormonal and endocrine factors can include elevated estrogen levels from obesity, liver disease or cirrhosis, estrogen therapies, and yes, there are men that are getting estrogens. And matter of fact, actually many years ago, they realized that certain types of estrogens, especially oral medications and injections, could even slow some prostate cancers for a while. The problem is that some of those estrogens are metabolized into concerning chemicals. And some of those concerning chemicals include what are called 4 and 16 hydroxyestrogens. Now, how do you get that test? Well, you have to do a urine test for it. I've got a link on this handout, so you can go to the webpage, prevailovercancer.com, the Learning Center, and download this. There's a link for a urine test. There's only a few companies that I know that do that, and they test for your estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, 2, 4, and 16 hydroxyestrones. The 4 hydroxyestrone has a tendency to damage DNA and creates a cancer cell. And then the 16 hydroxyestrone is more of a growth factor. And so about half of my clients with some cancer concerns, that we've done that test with, and they do have actually an issue with either the 4 or the 16 hydroxyestrone. If that's a problem, there are things that we do for that, and including, I'll go ahead and mention it now since I brought it up, broccoli, sulforaphane, DIM, I3C type items helps the liver to metabolize and get rid of those hormones. Now it comes back to the liver cirrhosis issue. So liver cirrhosis, that means the liver's not functioning ideally, so now it's not metabolizing the hormones. And so once again, the 4 and 16 hydroxyestrones are definitely a risk factor. And actually it's a ratio, what we're looking at. That ratio of the 2, which is good, versus the 4 and the 16, that's bad. So, and the link actually has information you can go to, and you can actually see some sample reports. So you can kind of see, this is not your typical general practitioner test.
So what is that test, and do you know offhand, do you know approximate cost of it?
The test that I use, company is called Dutch, D-U-T-C-H, and it's a $200 test. They have a more expensive test that also goes into the adrenal glands, and that one's about $360. But the basic hormone steroid panel is about $200 on that. So age also is going to be a factor, just as we mentioned, that 65 age increases those risks, but I do know men that are younger. Matter of fact, on social media, there are definitely some groups. His breast cancer on Instagram, I think is what it's called. And so there are definitely some in social media groups that go into that. And then another risk factor is actually what's called non-Hispanic black men. So here in the United States, we'll say African American, Native African American, but African American is going to have a greater risk. I don't know why that is, but that is a risk in the United States. That's a term we use in the United States. And so part of that has to do with some nutrients. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And environments. So speaking of which, environments, prior radiation to the chest. And so chest x-rays for infections or CT scans, which actually are multiple x-rays, that increases the risk of cancers, including breast cancer. Heavy alcohol use. So in prostate cancer, there's not enough science to say that alcohol use increases the risk of prostate cancer, but there's a possibility it might, because we're learning. Used to say, oh yeah, a guy could have 2 drinks a day and not be a problem. Now they're saying, well, 2 drinks a day can increase risk of some cancers. Still, they're not saying that with prostate cancer, but definitely for breast cancer. So for men, for breast cancer, that is going to be a risk factor. Also, testicular cancer, is going to be a risk. And other testicular type issues, sometimes the testicles can make more of different types of hormones. They also make estrogens. So if something's not quite working right there. The BRCA mutation is a risk factor. Obesity, alcohol, radiation exposure, age, and DNA damage. DNA damage can come from X-rays. Pilots are probably going to be at a higher risk because they're flying at a higher altitude and don't have as much atmosphere filtering the dangerous rays. It's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens as more and more people are spending time in outer space, as kind of newer things are starting to happen with that. So it'd be kind of curious to see as those people are followed with time. The more specific male type patterns include, it's called Klinefelter syndrome, which actually is that means that those rare individuals have actually 2 X chromosomes and a Y. And so they have a tendency actually to have more belly fat and breast tissue or body fat up here. And so that can be an issue. Testicular injury, can also be an issue. And then lower awareness. How many of us guys don't go to the doctor? It's a common problem. And we yeah, so T?
I found mine looking for a broken rib.
Okay, so so
I took it to the X-ray. They found it
in the X-ray. Okay, so yeah, so once again, T did know that he had this because he did know that really we should be doing exams on our body. We should be familiar with our body.
Even though I knew where it was after seeing the X-rays and the mammogram, I still
could not find it. Okay, so he actually was able to get it in an early stage. It was not a feelable type thing, and so he actually had a rib issue, had some pain, went in for an X-ray, and they found a spot with that X-ray. So he just happened to find that. I think God does bless us sometimes with some weird things happening that makes us go to the doctor, and so something's going on. So,
which is why I recommend everybody every man over 50, get a chest X-ray at least once every 5 years.
Yeah. So T is saying, getting a chest X-ray, and matter of fact, actually with my wife, she has a spot in her lung that we're following. And because actually it's in a spot that they can't get a biopsy. And so we are following that spot.
So if an X-ray works, why do we do mammograms?
Well, they are different. Mammograms are more special and can focus in better. So he did get a mammogram, yes. And so that was an experience, wasn't it? Being the only guy there.
Wonderful.
Yes. And so we had to go through what the women go through. And, but for us guys, going to that situation, embarrassing and not feeling normal and things like that, in that type of a situation. So, but we do need to be doing a self-evaluation. So, and I'm just going to go over this very briefly. And so basically, the first of the month, each month is a time to double check your body. And the best time to do that is when you're in the shower and even with your a little soapy, sudsy, but to feel your body. And so it's not just right here that's going to be a problem. You have to feel under your lymph nodes, and you have to feel for spots and lumps and bumps and just something that is not normal, and check this. And you have to check down here. The guys need to test or check the testicles too. Feel for lumps, feel the groin, and we've got to check this stuff. There's other cancers, so it's not just breast cancer, not just testicular cancer. There's all kinds of cancers, including lymphomas, and some leukemias that can show up. So we have to be checking this. The perfect time is the first of the month. A lot of social media type things are going to post a reminder. It's the first of the month, time to do your body check. Most of it's about women, but guys, you need to do the same thing. Extremely important. The earlier you catch this, the better it is. Once it's metastasized, this is a different beast. This is something that's very, very difficult to handle. Okay, so cancers, other cancers associated with this, include the genetic markers BRCA2, which can be an issue, not the issue, but a issue, a contributing issue for some prostate, pancreatic, and melanomas even. the BRCA1, which can be an issue for ovarian cancer and pancreatic cancer. So also what's called CHEK2, CHEK2, and PALB2, which are risk factors for breast cancer, prostate cancer, and pancreatic cancer. And then also I have a website link. So you can get genetic tests with or without a doctor's order. And so the genetic test, it can be like a swab in the mouth, a saliva type thing, sent that off to a lab. MyRisk.com is one company that does that. I've got a link on my website that's going to go to it. I even try to divide that out a little bit, showing the different types of the risks and the different cancers and what type of markers could be a risk. But anybody with a personal history or a family history of a cancer, I recommend getting tests done. Actually, it's becoming more and more common. So a lot of times, especially in women, I haven't seen it so much in men, but a few men, yes. But in women, when they have cancer, they'll ask, do you want a genetic test? And you want to say yes.
Especially if insurance is paying for it.
Especially insurance
Yeah.
paying for it. And often they will. Yes, sir.
They did a genetic test on me.
Okay. What did they find? Did they find anything?
They found lots of things, but I don't remember what they are.
Well, you don't. Okay. So yeah. So they may have found some things, and so, but with that genetic test, so it's not like, oh no, I'm going to get cancer. No, that's not it. It's a risk, but it's still food and supplement and lifestyle, and that makes a difference.
So one genetic test, there's only one way to do a genetic, that is the genetic test, right? Are there different genetic testing?
Well, there are. I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Well, I'm trying to impress upon people, if they got genetic testing, they find the MFT.
Oh, okay.
They find that. There's several things
Oh,
we
yes.
talked
I
about
see
in
what
the
you mean.
chamber. If we just do it one time, it can change the course of a lot of things we're going to do in the future,
Yes.
knowing what our genetics say.
Yes. So our genetics don't change.
Right.
We always have that marker, but each company can do a different panel.
Okay.
And so like another one I've done is a 3x4 genetics. What's the one that have you done one?
Sharon did the 1, 2, 3.
One, two, three.
Yeah.
Okay. And so,
But what does it cost? Just throw out a number, and again, I'm just trying to give an idea. If I did the genetic test that covers as much as I can cover, what does that test run?
So that a general panel is going to be about $300.
Why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah.
You can change your supplementation.
Yes. There's so many things. Matter of fact, supplements,
yeah,
lifestyle, medications. There's so many things
For $300, I want a guide.
for many different health issues. So, but now the MyRisk panel or a cancer panel is going to be different than a general panel.
Okay.
And so if you have a history of cancer, personal or family, a genetic cancer panel is different.
Okay.
But I do
I didn't
recommend
know
it. Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And so it's not terribly expensive nowadays. And so the MyRisk test, for example, does 48 different SNPs.
But you're saying that in that $300 testing, that's not going to be shown up?
No, it's not showing those.
Okay.
They do different things. So
Okay.
yes. And so that $300 test is not going to be a cancer test. There are some things that could be related to it, but it's not the full 48 things
Okay.
that we know currently that are risk factors. The MyRisk panel is $249, and they do accept insurance. So if you have a history of cancer, odds are much higher that insurance company is going to cover it. And that company, they want to do everything they can to work with the insurance. And then actually, if that's the case, your copay can be only like $49.
Now, I had skin cancers that a lot of people here know my history with skin cancers. Would that be something that would show up?
There could be a couple of things, yes.
Okay. So
Yes, could be
I'm
a
just
couple of
curious.
things. That's right.
All right.
And so, but once you've been diagnosed with it, then it's easier, for the lab company to get the doctor to code it properly to get it billed to insurance.
Okay.
On that. It's very important information. So with that, we now know that, with the let me get the acronym right, BRCA 1 and 2, there are specific things that we can do, food, lifestyle, supplements, medications. So if we know that, we can start making more changes,
There you
being
go.
more aggressive in what we do. So early detection, I already mentioned this before, but self-exams, extremely critical. Same type of thing that the women are supposed to be doing every month. And check for, but also visual things. So check for looking in the mirror. And so, yes, I know some of you guys are looking in the mirror and looking, posing and things like that. But you're looking, but you've got to look at stuff. You've got to look for lumps, skin dimpling, redness or swelling. Look under the arms, under the armpits. Look for lymph node enlargement. And so an occasional lymph node thing may not be a major issue. It could be a sign of infection, but a long-term could be an issue with that. So, and then also men, if you do test positive for some of these genetic things, that means that you need to be doing more like annual breast exams. As a matter of fact, if you have that family history, if mother has BRCA1 or 2, then that means that you need to be doing the monthly exams. You need to be doing things early because you're at a higher risk. So it could be happening earlier for you, so starting at least at age 35. Okay, nutrition. So things that can help out with this. High fiber diet. And so that fiber traps the hormones, the estrogens in the gut and flushes them out. So high fiber, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and kale, cauliflower, all those sour tasting things, those also have sulforaphane and DIM and I3C in them. Those sulfurous type things helps the liver to process and change from the bad estrogens into the safer estrogens. And that goes back to that 2, 4, and 16 ratios. Omega-3 fatty acids, so salmon, sardines, flax, walnuts. Matter of fact, sardines are becoming one of my favorite foods. And so
I can't believe it took me so long to find them.
I know.
Because, I mean, what an awesome, that's my lunch every day. Sardines or salmon.
Yeah, or salmon can be good. It depends on how it's raised, where it's caught. So wild caught, I guess, is it Atlantic is going to be, no, wild caught Pacific. I'm not sure which is better. Wild caught.
So wild caught, and I would like to find it in water. I've not been able to yet. So it's in olive oil, and I can't imagine that it's the best olive oil because they use so much of it.
Right.
But anyway, both the sardines and I get the salmon in a can that's Alaska. It's a wild caught.
Okay.
And they have it at Costco, so it's the most expensive. I mean, that's how you can usually tell that it's the good stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, it makes a great lunch. I put an avocado with it and make a little pudding out of it,
Yep, mash it up.
And then I put it on a bed of lettuce.
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, T.
Sardines with Louisiana hot sauces.
Yeah. Louisiana hot sauce and your spices. And matter of fact, spices are extremely important. Even just salt and pepper. Pepper on that is going to help increase the absorption of all kinds of the nutrients. So, but yeah, so Louisiana hot sauce. I think he told me that a couple weeks ago too. I haven't tried that yet. I'm not a big fan of extremely hot, but I put a little.
There's a lot of sardines that are processed with the Louisiana with hot sauces,
really?
Tabascos, and all of them, and they're really good.
My wife eats them, so they're not hot.
Okay, they're not, okay. And then polyphenol-rich foods. So typically that means darker colored foods, and like berries and drinking green tea, turmeric, any dark food is going to have a lot more antioxidants in it than a light colored food. So, matter of fact, if you peel the skin off of an apple, you're losing the polyphenols. You're losing that benefit of that apple. That's like probably almost not even eating the apple. We have to have that skin. That is the polyphenols. That is the anti-cancer ingredients.
Preferably organic because it's also holding all the possible toxins.
Well, toxins and probable toxins, rather. And so, matter of fact, we'll talk about that very briefly. So, fruits and vegetables, they spray those. Organic has safer options that they've used. Non-organic, they are just, probably spraying the heck out of them. It's a financial thing, so they can just maximize that harvest. And then, not only does it have pesticides, but a lot of these, including well, a lot of vegetables, if they're one that's sitting on the shelf, kind of hard on the outside, lemons, limes, oranges, fruits, but
Appeal?
well, they have coatings on them, and that could be a peel or waxes, yes, but that traps the pesticides on there. So even if you're washing those fruits and vegetables that are not organic, you're trying to wash those with either a vinegar or a baking soda wash, it's still not cutting the wax or the peel. And so it takes actually hot water and scrubbing to get rid of the wax, or, well, I can't say get rid of, to decrease that.
I think there's a couple of the natural grocers, and when I say natural, I think Natural Grocers does not use a peel, and I know Costco does not. Nothing in there has a peel on it.
Okay, and some companies are definitely doing that, and you do have to research that out to figure that out. And so, but even organics are going to have some natural waxes, but those natural waxes come from plants and animals, actually insect wax. That sounds weird, doesn't it? But it's just a shellac that we don't know of any problems with it. But the purpose of that is to make it so the produce will stay fresh longer, because they pick it from a long ways away, probably even other countries, ship that in, it's on the shelf, it's in your refrigerator or on the counter. So sometimes we can have weeks or longer for this stuff to be sitting around. So we just have to kind of wash those and scrub some of those if you're going to be eating the peels. Okay, foods to limit, including excess alcohol. And so alcohol, even for women, any alcohol increases the risk of breast cancer. For men, we don't know yet because it's not as common, but we have to assume it's going to be the same type of thing. So any amount of alcohol on a regular basis will increase the risk of breast cancer in men. Ultra-processed foods. So I mentioned this very briefly earlier. Food, if it has more than 3 ingredients, it's probably a processed food. If it's a label says that it has words on it that you don't understand or don't know what they are, that's a processed food. And so we need to go back to the way Grandma used to do it, more natural, simple, basic things. That means, yes, we may have to go to the grocery store a couple of times a week, to get things because they're not going to be have preservatives in them. But the processed foods are a problem. Not just for breast cancer, not for just men's breast cancer, but for many other cancers, and it's probably the driving factor for colorectal cancer.
So call out natural flavors and tell everybody what that umbrella is.
Natural flavors, we don't even know what's in that. So there's a whole list of things that can be natural flavors because they're processed, and they had unnatural things that they used to make them. And so there's an umbrella that
if it falls, and there's just under 100 different chemicals, my understanding, that fall under natural flavors. And if I'm wrong on that, please comment if there's a better number.
They need to list.
Why?
More and more companies more companies are now switching the way they do things. As a matter of fact, we had some tortilla chips from Sprouts, a health food store locally, and it was corn and avocado oil, salt, and lime. Perfect.
Costco has several chips now that are made with avocado oil and sea salt. That's the only thing. Potatoes.
Yeah.
One's a sweet potato, one's a white potato, and it's anyway.
Yeah, it's a perfect thing. We just have to be careful about how many. About the quantity.
Too bad they sell them in such big bags.
Sorry, yeah. So we have to actually, in our house, we have to put those in the pantry. And if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. If it's on the kitchen counter, that's a problem.
I get it.
That's right. So, so processed foods. Matter of fact, that also means we have to be careful about eating out. When I was a child, we didn't eat out. There were no fast food restaurants. I'm that old, I guess. But anyway, there were no restaurants. Matter of fact, one of the first restaurants I remember going to was a A&W root beer drive-in restaurant. And it wasn't all that healthy probably. That was the first restaurant I think I ever went to. And then we went to a fish and chips restaurant. in a shopping center.
Well, just think about the fact that they're in business because they're creating profit margins, and the way they're going to do that is by using the least expensive food, not unless you go to a specialty restaurant
Right.
that markets healthy, but most of the fast food, they got a profit margin, and I don't even know that that's hamburger. Just,
Oh, no.
I don't want to really go there, but I'm not going to eat there because I'm trying to eat healthy.
Do they say it's 100% beef? If they don't say that, it's not going to be 100% beef. And we have to assume that with actually any restaurant. So I do go out to eat occasionally, yes, but I'm definitely not doing that every day like I used to.
Texas Roadhouse has a filet on a salad that's cheaper than the filet.
Oh, really?
And it's almost I think it's a whole filet
Yeah.
on a salad.
Huh.
And it is, that's the only place I eat out is I'll go have that. And if
Okay.
they bring rolls to my table, I don't tip them.
Oh,
I give them fair warning. You
Don't-
bring a
don't
roll to
bring the
this
roll.
table, you're going to bring 10 baskets, and I'm going to look like a Pillsbury Doughboy walking out of here. So
Okay.
there are boundaries.
that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
We have to restrict the number of calories and breads like that. Once again, we don't know what all is in that.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, even that special butter that they have, we don't know what.
That's why I don't take the bread.
That's right. We
Do
don't know
not
what
bring
is
the
in that-
bread.
That,
Anyway.
soft butter. And then high sugar diets that can worsen insulin resistance. So belly fat is a risk factor for breast cancer for men and women, and prostate cancer in men. Lifestyle. We have to maintain a healthy weight, and we have to engage in exercise. So, and it needs to be, the sweet spot is at least 150 minutes of exercise a week. That means 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And we have to get our heart rate up to where a point, you don't have to necessarily count it, but where you're starting to breathe hard and or you're starting to sweat a little bit. That is the key. So we have to have a high enough of a heart rate. But it does take at least 150 minutes, 30 minutes. And actually my favorite is high intensity interval training, HIIT. That's exercise for basically 1 minute, rest for 1 minute. During that one minute of resting, I'm not wasting my time. I'm stretching, and then 1 minute of exercise, and then 1 minute of stretching, 1 minute of exercise, 1 minute of stretching. Before you know it, 30 minutes is gone. And so walking can be good, but it does need to be fast enough to get your heart rate up. And I do that actually every late afternoon. I take my dog for a walk, and we are hoofing it. We are pushing hard, and then take a little break, and pushing hard and taking a break. So we got to get the heart rate up. Supplements. So things that could harm, could be actually, I'm concerned about a few supplements. I have a guide on my website that I do sell. And that's one of the few things I sell, but it does list actually vitamins and minerals that could be a problem. I'm going to drop two things in that, and that means excess copper and synthetic folic acid are going to increase the risk of breast cancer in men and women and prostate cancer. So we have to be careful about those, and so be careful about synthetic. If it says folic acid, it's synthetic, whether it be in bread or processed foods. They fortified that wheat to make it so that it's more like a food. That's wrong, and that's going to increase your risk of breast cancer, men and women. Copper, adding copper to things, taking excess copper can be a problem. Is a copper-zinc ratio. But there are several studies showing that taking a multiple vitamin with synthetic folic acid, and other studies showing taking copper with elevated copper levels in the body increases the risk of cancer and aggressive cancer.
And if you live in an older house, and I say pre-1980, something like that?
1978
1978?
or before.
You probably have copper piping, and it
Yes.
could even be afterwards.
Yes.
But if you live in a house that has copper water piping, then you're getting all the copper you need, and probably then some.
I was
So you
toxic
need to
in copper.
test. So you need to have if you're living in a house like that, you need to keep a check on that copper
That's right.
level.
Most of my adult life, I was living in apartments and homes with copper pipes. And so I'm so excited not to be in that situation now. So
Now it's plastic.
yeah, it's plastic. So what's the concern about plastic?
I didn't want to go there, but anyway.
So, but I was toxic in
Yeah.
copper. I was toxic.
Well, you can test for that and know
Yes.
that you're out of bounds. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's a blood test. You can test copper and zinc both. Test them at the same time. Look at that ratio. I want my zinc to be a little bit higher than the copper. in that zinc ratio. So supplements that can help out include curcumin, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, extremely critical. And matter of fact, I don't have that statistic, but vitamin D3 reduces the risk of many cancers. And after being diagnosed, adding vitamin D3 into a treatment program improves survival. So yes, T.
D3K2 is what they advised me to start on.
Yes, and so good. So the doctor actually said that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, they're learning, aren't they?
Mhm.
So, okay, so the doctor actually told him to start taking D3 with K2. So D3 is great. Vitamin K2 is actually just now being studied. It actually does have anti-cancer benefits, but it reduces the risk of calcium getting stuck in the blood vessels and creating atherosclerosis. And it moves that calcium, actually all calciums, into the bones better, supports bone health. Did you have another question?
It might be Dr. Mom instead of Dr. Koya.
Dr.
Where's my wife?
Okay, oh, Dr. Mom. Okay, so his wife is blessing him. And matter of fact, we need that help, and another person to help us a lot of times on that. So yes, his wife is helping him a lot. And then green tea catechins, and so drinking matcha. Green tea is good. Matcha is 10 times better. So I'm all about matcha. I'm drinking at least a cup of matcha every day. I may switch over to green tea as the day progresses or at night because it's lower caffeine. But matcha is a fantastic type thing. Coffee is not known to be an issue, so long, once again, and actually my beverages is the area I really concentrate on organic. I can get it. It's not terribly expensive, and I want to focus on those beverages being organic to reduce those chemical exposures. By the way, before I forget, I mentioned ultra-processed foods a couple of times, but I don't think I mentioned this. I had a post last night that I posted about ultra-processed foods. So if a person has cancer and officially they're considered to be a cancer survivor, that means they've gone 5 years and they've survived 5 years. And the persons that eat the most ultra-processed foods have a 59% greater risk of dying from their cancer. They have a 48% greater risk of dying from any cause versus the person that doesn't eat much processed food. That's how important this is. So we've got to be careful about these packaged foods, cereals, packages, boxes of foods. Those are a problem. And so more natural type foods.
One of the most profound things I think I ever said in the chamber is that when you go shopping, if you pick it up and it's got more than one ingredient, put it back. And what's going to happen over time, just think of all those shelves that are ultra-processed foods that we're all looking at now. They're not going to turn over as quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's going to make an impact is our dollars.
Right,
But
exactly. When they're making changes.
I can't believe how many people have been in the chamber and they go, Paul, you ruined me. What? Because every time I go shopping now, I look at the ingredients and I can't tell you how much I put up
That's right.
because they just didn't know.
Yeah, and my wife does not like going to the store with me. Matter of fact, she's shopping right now because I'm not with her because I take too long because I'm reading those labels. And so, and she's learning and making gradual changes. And matter of fact, she reviews each of my posts, so she's learning. But I'm reading those labels, and I'm more willing to make a change, definitely, in what I'm putting in my body. So kind of just a summary. So maintain a healthy weight, exercise at least 150 minutes a week, eat cruciferous vegetables, berries, omega-3s, limit alcohol, perform monthly chest, breast self-exams. And chest means this whole area, okay? Not just the small area here, but the whole body. And then annually also, be more serious. If you have a family member with a BRCA positive breast cancer or HER2 new, if you have a family member with HER2 new, you need to be more serious about this. All of these things. Yes, sir.
Two more things. The 1% in growing male men are starting to take more initiative in their health and being more proactive about it. I think that we're going to start finding more male breast cancer. And the other one is I had prostate cancer 10 years ago last year, which was the year I had breast cancer was last year.
Okay, yeah, so T is sharing with us, so he's a gentleman that asked us, about this, and so, yes, I'm tickled to provide this information, but, prostate cancer is a risk factor that does increase your risk. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it does increase your risk, and the rates are going up, and so it used to be rare. It's definitely more common now than it used to be, so, and that has to do with our lifestyle and our foods. That's the number one thing, for that. So, any questions or thoughts you have before we get into
No,
the Q&A?
let's answer
Okay.
some questions
Yeah, got a few
online.
minutes, okay.
Thanks for sending the questions
Yeah,
in.
thank you. So, once again, actually go to hyperbarics.plus to get, is it hyperbaric or hyperbarics?
Barrick, no
Barrick.
S.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Hyperbaric.plus.
Hyperbaric.plus to download the handout for today, or prevailovercancer.com and the Learning Center to get your free handout. Today, these videos are going to be online, and so I'll be taking that down after a week, so I just kind of rotate that through. So act now. So what is a good way to navigate post-cancer surgery? In this case, papillary RCC tumor removal, and post-surgery, it's kind of a broad question. So post-surgery, navigate post-surgery.
I got to think maybe they're asking that they had surgery and they don't want to do chemo and radiation, so what can they do as a preventative as they go forward? Is that the
I don't
question?
know. Yeah, I'm not real sure. So
I have that question all the time in here.
So post-surgery, it's important to be physically, actually it's the same things. We have to be physically active. Matter of fact, take advantage of your health care. If you've got physical therapists that are, helping you to do recovery type things, to build up the muscles, we have to be physically active and using our body for that to heal better, prevent blood clots. We have to eat right, and we have to have enough of the right nutrients. One thing I do often is a urine and saliva pH, and so if your saliva or your urine is acidic, my concern is that you may be low in basic nutrients, and that's going to prolong healing. So that would be one thing. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly what that question was. Any precautions for prostate cancer? Well, actually, these very same things. It still goes into, well, one other thing, actually, more specific for prostate cancer that I've found is actually any dairy increases the risk of prostate cancer. So even cheese, cottage cheese, yogurt, kefir, milk, raw milk, it doesn't make a difference. They are all risk factors for prostate cancer. So if you have a personal or family history of it, that you need to be extremely careful. I occasionally do eat, what do I do once a week? Almost.
Well, I eat a lot of dairy, and so you're scaring me to death. I don't know
But
that we've had this
do
conversation.
you have a family history?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I do.
Okay.
And so therefore, I'm going to be really careful about that. Although I still do eat a pizza almost every week, okay? And so, but I'm making healthier choices with that. I'm not putting this
Yeah, there's no, I'm not going to eat pizza with you. There's no pepperoni, there's no sausage,
pepperoni, no
there's
sausage,
no Canadian bacon.
bacon. Exactly. And
Chicken.
So, chicken or beef.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
You talk about this all the
I know,
time, and
exactly.
that is a healthy pizza. And
It is.
the other day I saw a pizza dough was made out of, golly, something I never would have thought about. I can't remember. I was going to bring it to your attention, but when I get that.
Yeah, there's
No, it wasn't any of the things we talk about. It was,
Yeah.
it was Guy. I need to ask Guy. He's the
Okay.
one that told me.
Yeah, so there's cauliflower, and matter of fact, one of my persons in our community mentioned that she makes a sourdough crust, which might be better, but still have to be careful about quantities.
This was a meat product
Oh, a meat. Oh,
that they made it into a crust,
okay,
and they put the cheese and stuff on top. But that was anyway.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
okay. So, will doctors order any genetic testing during preventative appointments, or does there have to be a reason? To get it covered on insurance, there has to be a diagnostic reason. And so, they can order the test, and actually, and yes, lab companies will do the genetic tests often without a diagnosis, but then it's going to be a cash only. And some of these companies will charge $2,000 for the comprehensive panel, which actually is like gigantic for
That
cancer.
we can get for $1,000.
That we can get cheaper, right?
Yep.
And once again, and then the 48 cancer markers is $249. So without insurance, it's $49 if insurance pays. So you have to have that diagnosis of cancer to get it covered. Great question. Great information. Thank you. More than what the traditional doctor will tell you. They don't have time, and they may not know. You know, as a pharmacist, I didn't know this stuff. I had to learn it, and so we're not taught that in school. They usually say what to stay away from, but they don't have enough information. And then what are the minerals we should be implementing in our diets or supplements? So the most important minerals are just a couple of basic things. So a little bit of selenium. I choose a little bit of selenium is going to be a Brazil nut a day, maybe two, depends on body size. Paul is bigger than me. I'm doing typically one Brazil nut a day. Paul could do up to two to get the recommended daily allowance of selenium. Too much selenium can be a problem. Zinc is another important one for all of these cancers. Zinc helps the immune system. Matter of fact, all these things help the immune system. Zinc helps the immune system, but too much can be a problem, and even too much zinc has been shown to be a problem in aggressive prostate cancers. So we got to be in the sweet spot on that. And so it comes back to assessing and don't guessing. So there's a zinc taste test that's available. I have that information on my website. And then there's a blood test and urine test that's available that measures that zinc and copper ratios. So, and matter of fact, you can get that from your doctor, or in most states in the United States, you can also get that blood test without a doctor's order. I think it's $75. I have information on my website about that. And then magnesium. That's something that we really don't think about, but magnesium, it's estimated that half of all adult onset diabetes is caused by magnesium deficiency. Magnesium helps the heart to relax, it helps the bladder to relax, helps the intestines to relax, it helps the natural killer cells and the T cells to work better. So it helps out with many different things in the body. Oh, vitamin D, it helps vitamin D to be converted into the active ingredient. So if you're taking your vitamin D and no magnesium, you may not be working. You may not be converting it into what your body really needs. So those are probably the most important ones I can think of. That
I use a dash of Redmond or Baja Gold salt whenever I draw a large glass of water. I put a little dash of salt in there.
has some trace amounts of
little
these
trace
minerals.
amounts of
Exactly.
minerals,
So, matter of fact, the Redmond salt, there's actually it's the same thing they use for humans and animals. I have Redmond salt for my horses, and they have listed those ingredients. It's frustrating. They don't do that for humans. They don't
So
list
I
all those
could put a cow lick in my
Definitely.
Yeah, I could just see my wife appreciating that.
Yes, so yes, I have. Matter of fact, I have tasted that. I have a horse lick, for my horses, and it's Redmond salt. And it, matter of fact, when you look at it and compared to the human Redmonds, it's the same thing.
Yep.
They get it from the same place, on that. But they do list the trace minerals that's in that. So that's about all I have.
Well, we pushed right up to the hour again. That's
good.
perfect timing, and I appreciate everybody being here. And we love comments. I mean, that's kind of what drives everything when you get some comments. And Keith is great about answering the questions afterwards. So if there's something we didn't touch on, or you come up with a question later, go back and submit a question, and we'll get it answered for you. You can always come and dive with us. So we're at 122nd and May in Oklahoma City, and the initial dive is $75.
That's the tank
So
behind us.
I'd love for people to come in and understand what this is, and then they have the ability to share with others, because you'll hear stories in here almost every time you dive. But
Yeah, and the purpose of the dive is actually to open up blood vessels, okay? So that's what I'm about, is improving circulation, whether it be exercise, or doing a dive like this, is to dilate those blood vessels, improve circulation throughout the body.
Yep, thank you. And then Keith has the other side of life in PrevailOverCancer.com, clinical nutritionist, and just, it's so fun. If you come on a Thursday and dive with us, you get Keith. He's stuck with you asking questions.
For an hour in the tank.
And everybody in here benefits, because we all have the same question. We just don't know how to ask it. So I think we're done. Keith with PrevailOverCancer.com, Paul at hyperbaric.plus, and come see us. Look forward to seeing you next week.
See you later.
Way to go.